Alright, hey, what's up, guys? Uh, I've been wanting to make this video for a while, and I hope that the audio quality isn't terrible. It's not a very great setup that I have right now. It's super improv, and the reason why I'm doing this right now is because it's something that's been on my mind for a while, and something that I've wanted to record for a while. And essentially, the topic is, as you'll see from the video headline, it's a rant, but specific. Remember when it used to be about the games? Now, this video is not going to, as it's a very spur of the moment kind of thing, it's not going to be like many of those awesome videos you see where they have all these different references on the screen. They've done research for like a few weeks. It's nothing in like that, just because I don't want to really dedicate the time to doing a research project right now. And anyway, so it's just a general opinion, and you don't have to agree with it, but if you do and you meld with it, awesome. But I think most people will be able to agree with me, and that's what I'm hoping to get across here is this general point that you could just feel it. If you think about everything that's happened lately, and you think about all the different stuff that's went on over the last 4 years, or five, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on your perspective, it seems like, I don't know if this is true, well, it's definitely not true entirely, but at least partially, and you see it a lot with third-party studios, is that the greed seems to be overcoming everything. And I know the saying is greed is good. I personally don't believe that, and you could tell because as far as my memory serves me, don't quote me on this, and I could be wrong in saying this, but as far as I can tell, greed eventually, if it gets out of hand, leads to a collapse. We've seen crashes before. Now, there's, of course, a lot of other reasons behind a crash than just uh, all these other things, like and factors, but there's a lot more behind it. But essentially, what I'm saying, so, bit of change of scene, sort of, for a second, but my essential thesis is that you just look around at the industry, you look at stuff that's happening, and you look at what companies are doing, like EA and like Activision, where they're milking franchises, and you could argue that the only reason for sequels is just to make money. Now, that's an accusation that's been thrown around a lot, and just by thinking about it, it can seem to be very true. And it's just sad because you can think of a time when they actually used to make games, not business models. And what I mean by that is hey, I'm recording right now. So it's just Wayne, don't mind him. So if you think about it, we can all remember classic Battlefront 2. Which was a great game, played on the PS2 a lot, lots of great memories, and it's a game that doesn't have loot boxes. It doesn't have unlocks. It doesn't, as far as I can remember, it didn't have anything in terms of like progressional stuff that you'd have to unlock, but yet it had such replay value. It had so much because it was an actual game that was fun. It was fun to play. And I feel that, this is something that I don't see thrown around as much, but it feels like unlocks are an excuse to lengthen the time that you have a player base for. And it's not that unlocks are bad, because you could have unlocks that are really fun and actually add to the game's experience. You could have communities that evolve around those things, like Team Fortress 2, CSGO, all these things, like these thriving communities that are doing a bunch of different stuff. And it's making the scene better. It's adding to it, right? But then you have situations where it just feels crappy. It feels really fabricated, it feels dull, it feels bland, it feels just bad. And that's the examples with loot boxes, as I would see more recently, and all these other progression things where it seems like they think, okay, right out the gate, the suits at the company, so the publishers are like, okay, how can we get the most money out of this game? This is something that you may have heard a lot about before, about how the reason why you have the developers that have their initial passions and stuff, but obviously if they're having to meet criteria of publishers because they have to make money, they're a business, so you're going to see a lot of things that happen where ideas can get changed because it's not going to be able to meet that deadline, or it's going to be too much money. As far as I remember hearing, one of the main reasons why Kojima was fired from Konami is because he's spending too much money. Now, this is something that I recommend you look up just to make sure that this is the actual reason why, as I'm just going off of memory right now. But it's things like this that limit the actual passion of the project, because they do have to remain in business, as opposed to going bankrupt on one potential idea, which may flip or flop. You don't really know. So all these things considered, what happened, what changed, and there's not a clear-cut answer for this, but it's just the industry is evolving and changing all the time, and people's attitudes are changing. And unfortunately, they seem to be changing in the wrong way, where people are doing really, in my opinion, bad business decisions, because I know they're trying to make the most money, but then you get this whole what we'll call the Call of Duty syndrome, where your main goal kind of almost seems to be to make money, and so you recycle what works time and time again until eventually it doesn't work anymore because people are tired of the same crap year after year, and it's just being forced down your throats. People don't want it anymore. So you can almost argue that in the long run, it'd be better off if you actually made the game a game first and didn't focus on how to milk the most money out of it, and actually made an actual game, and then thought, okay, what do we do next? What's our next idea? Let's innovate. Let's see what we can do. And then in the long run, people can actually appreciate that because you're actually being a game company, not a business that's just trying to squeeze every last drop out of the people. Because people don't like that when you slap them in the face like that, when you treat them with disrespect. If you actually had a good outlook and respect for your consumer base and honored that and was like, okay, the players love this for a reason. Why do they love it? How could we say thank you and continue in a way that reflects that we care about making a quality product, right? That would make sense. That'd be nice if a lot of companies do that. And I think that while this whole thing with greed and the video games economy or industry seeming to take a turn for the worse when it comes to third parties, I think if this hadn't have happened as big of it as it did, we wouldn't have as much of a thriving indie community. Because I think as a result of games not really being games per se, in a lot of cases, like just not feeling as good as they used to, we've had these people that are like, you know what, we want to make games, we want to do this, and we want to make a game that we want to make, not what some suits tell us to make money. So we're going to go and we're going to do our own thing. We're going to fund it ourselves, work a job, and then on our off time make the game. And sure, it might take a year or two or whatever it is, but when we release it, it's going to be our own thing. It's going to be our own idea. It's going to be possibly innovative, possibly something that hasn't been seen, and it's going to be cool. And so then you have all these wonderful companies that do these things, and then you get works of art that come out of it, and these are actual games first. A lot of times, like, I remember watching an episode of The Final Bossman on Game Trailers years back, where he said he was talking about Metal Gear Solid and how it's continuing to have sequels, and how if you really look at the story pacing, as far as I can remember hearing, Metal Gear Solid 4 was supposed to be the last one in the series, right? It was ended like a finale, right? And then the fifth one came up, which, not that it was a bad game, although you could tell that it was unfinished and it could have been better, and it's really sad that it wasn't what it was supposed to be. But you could tell that you could almost argue that Kojima was pushed to try to pull it out of his rear end yet again in an amazing way to try to continue to make money for Konami. And that's because they are a business, they are a company that wants to make money, right? But when you apply that strategy to games in a way that feels forced, it can really hurt the overall good vibes of the game. It could hurt the reputation. And so it really sucks when you see that happen. And what the guy on The Final Bossman said was that you never see a Journey 2. Journey was a game that was so critically acclaimed, so loved, and I'm pretty sure in official PlayStation Magazine UK, it's still on, your top 10 or top 15 list. Even just the remaster of the PS4 version is on there, and that's a game that came out, I think about 5 to 7 years ago. I'm not sure, but a while ago. But it's something because it was an original idea, and it was something that was uninfluenced by all this garbage and ridiculous kind of ideas. And it was a game first, and that's what made it so great. Is it was its own idea. It was a game first, and it was able to be made like that with that kind of passion, right? And maybe the whole frustrating thing is it seems like, are people passionate anymore? Do they have a passion anymore? Does this even exist? And when you look at some things, it feels like it doesn't. But then you look to other studios that haven't been affected as much by this microtransaction plague, and you look to the indie market, you look to all these places, and you see that, yes, there are people that still care about making the games. For them, it's still about the games. And these are the people that are keeping the industry alive, or at least helping to increase the good morale, right? They're kind of trying to balance out the good and the bad here. Now, what we're seeing is that eventually people have had enough, and this is something that is unfolding right now. You see a lot of people that are very angry when Battlefront 2, the new one, by EA, was having ridiculous stuff with progression and loot boxes, and how it almost looked as if there was so little in the game and you could only unlock, or seemed like you could only unlock most of the stuff by loot boxes, or you'd have to play a ridiculous amount of hours. That's another problem, is that some content just takes too long to unlock, or you could spend $60 to get something that otherwise would take you uh, hundreds of hours. In some cases, it's ridiculous. Like, I remember there was some sort of scandal with like Forza 5 or Forza 6 or something like that some time ago. But you have these people that manage to remember what it was about, what it was all about, how it started, how it should remain. And, like, thank God for these people, because these are people that are going to probably do a lot of good in a time that just seems where we really need it. And that's right now. And so I guess I don't even know if this is really an anger rant, but just expressing general views on stuff. But it's just, I hope that we can really get back to a time when it is about the games again, and when people realize that if you actually spend time in making a quality product, that people appreciate that, and that chances are that's going to be overall, over the span of a long period of time, going to be a better business decision, because people could actually respect that, right? Good, honest business. Does that exist anymore? So you can see that people have had enough, like I was saying, got fed up with EA, and ranted and posted on the forums and everything, and the voice was actually heard. And so much that that Disney was even, I think there was even debate of if Disney should revoke the licensing, which obviously, as far as I know, hasn't happened yet. But there was this whole talk about it. But it was a wake up call, and for a period of time, they even took the loot boxes out over Christmas, which was great. I don't know if they're back in yet. They might be. They might not be. I'm not sure. And as far as I've heard, I'm pretty sure that Anthem isn't going to have loot boxes in it. I believe that's the case, and I hope it is. It will overall be most likely better for the game, because let's face it, these loot boxes really should be kept to free-to-play games. Microtransactions were usually always on free-to-play games only, and then a lot of people, or some people, argue it started with GTA with the shark cards, when all of those microtransactions moved over to actual third-party games that you pay full price for. And it's making something such a cash cow, such a cash grab, that it's ridiculous. Some people might even say it's insulting. It's like a slap in the face for the love and the care and the fact that you've even spent the initial price and you want to play the game. You know what I mean? It's just, you could argue it's disrespectful. You could argue whatever. Some people may not care, but ultimately it's an issue that really should be addressed. And so, where are we now? People I think are hopefully starting to listen, and I think one of the big things that probably, what I almost imagine will be the straw to break the camel's back, will be Black Ops 4, because I think it's an example of a franchise that's really, it's trying, but it's not. It's a weird conundrum, because Battle Royale mode, so they're hopping on the possibly already overused bandwagon, because some people say the Battle Royale is dying, and just like all trends come and go, right? And so it's hard to tell if we're at the middle point, just a little bit past the peak, or if it's ending. It's hard to say, but it feels like such like a last minute, oh yeah, let's do that, and it's like, and you cut the campaign, which a lot of people love, like old school Call of Duty. If you go back to the first games, or even which were only campaigns, or at least mostly, some of them may have had some online features, but then you have World at War, Modern Warfare 1 and 2, and I guess kind of Modern Warfare 3, but Modern Warfare 3's campaign could have been a little bit better. But you have these games that had remarkable campaigns and really good multiplayers, right? And it was fun, it was awesome, but the campaign was part of that experience. And when you just take some of the core values, it's like when you take split screen from Halo, right? With what Halo 5 did, for whatever reasons they did. Some people argue it was just a bunch of corporate crap that they tried to justify, but in reality, you could argue that it was just a lazy decision. I don't know, we'll see, because split screen has always been there before, and all of a sudden it's just gone. And that's something that really sucks, because I have some fond memories of playing Halo Reach and stuff like that with friends, and having that option to do 4-player split screen. And as far as I can remember, even 4-player or at least 2-player, but possibly 4-player split screen online was awesome, and it's something that you don't really see other games doing. And there's all these different analogies that have been made about how, it's just stupid to have to make the only way to play a game with somebody cooperatively the only option to be somebody to just go home and get their own Xbox and do it. That just feels ridiculous, and that's where the greed really comes in. It's like you are trying so hard to get as much money from people as possible. It's just terrible. And in my opinion, I really don't think that's what it should be about. I know it's hard if you're a business and you're trying to thrive, but let's face it, a lot of the people that are doing these things, they got a lot of money already. So I would hope that they can afford to take a couple hits and put in a few half-decent features that allow people to just have fun with friends without having to make them buy their own PS4, buy their own copy of the game, make their own account, whatever. It just let them play together, because you make so much great memories. And if you actually care about forming a community, that's something that's going to help. It was something that was seen so necessary by some people, and it still should be considered valuable. And so if I'm thinking that, they have some stuff going on with zombies, but I don't know, some people, like the Act Man made a video about how why was Call of Duty World War II so bad, and he was talking about how you've overly, I think he said that you overly simplified the multiplayer in terms of like the perks and the weapon customizations and everything else, but you over complicated zombies, which is something that has always been just a really simple thing, just survive. But then you have almost more customization there than you do for the online. How does that make sense? So it seems like it's almost like you try to innovate in the wrong ways. And if they do, which is what they seems like they're kind of doing, like take out the campaign, battle royale, you get now 2 zombies maps at start instead of just 1. Wow, you know what I mean? And it's like, if you innovate in the wrong ways, you could argue that, well, actually, the Axeman was saying that innovation and why, what was it? The video was why, it was a critique of Black Ops 4, and it's like, the Axeman said, when you innovate, or taking stuff out of something is not innovation, right? Just taking something away from something and calling it innovation, that's just ridiculous. If you're changing something, then yes, of course it's innovation, but just to say, we're taking out the campaign and now we're putting battle royale and that's innovation, it's like, is it? It doesn't really feel like, it doesn't feel great. If you had he was saying in his video, if you put the battle royale in, the Actman was saying that would be great if there was already a campaign there and then they had this extra thing, right? That's adding to it instead of just swapping out or taking away, it's like, if you actually swapped out stuff that was wanted, swap out the idea of paying for DLC with free DLC, which is what Battlefield 5 is doing apparently, which is awesome if that's the case, because you're not going to split the player base up anymore, and it's not going to feel like a giant cash grab all the time. It feels like, okay, I bought the game at release. It's just such a ridiculous idea anymore to think that when you buy the game at release that you should have full access to the game and not have to do anything else. I almost feel bad in saying that, because it feels like we've been trained nowadays to not think that at release I should have full access to this game. No. Of course not. You have to buy the map packs. You have to buy the DLC. You have to buy all these other things. And yes, if you don't want to grind for hours and hours and hours on end, you should buy our in-game currency with real money so that you can get your stuff now. What? Why? Remember when it was about the games, right? Remember when it was about having a fun, enjoyable experience with a game and enjoying that with your friends, making communities around it, having fun. It feels like, the more you do this greedy stuff, the less fun it becomes. And it's like you're missing the point, man. Wake up. You're missing the point, and eventually it probably will cost you if you continue to do this crap. Because you've seen it with Activision, you've seen it with EA, their reputations fall, so do revenues on things. As it's been said that Call of Duty's income is going down in terms of their earnings, and it's sad because there was a time when they were really doing awesome, and it was considered the cool thing, the best thing, and now it's just the joke, right? It's like when me and Caleb went to E3, it was well, one of the jokes was who goes to E3 to play Fortnite, but that aside, it was I don't want to wait in line to play Black Ops 4. I ain't waiting 2 hours in line for that. It's out of all the things there, it just felt like there was so much better, more desirable things to play. like going to play Kingdom Hearts or something, which I didn't get to do, or going to play Rage 2, or there's other stuff that just feels better now. And it wasn't always like that. There was probably a time where, like, if say I went to E3 back in time, like if I was the same age now, but back in time, and I knew about the success of Modern Warfare 1 and saw Modern Warfare 2, I'd probably want to, get in there and play that, right? But it just doesn't have the same thing anymore. It's lost its cool factor. It's lost its flavor, its heart, its soul, and that's what's happening to a lot of things nowadays. And that's why it's probably the case why indie's having so much success. A lot of people are turning there, and I know I'm recycling or reusing points right now, but it feels like the fact of the matter. And again, I said I don't really have a whole lot of hard research to support this, other than stuff I've watched over the past, which I've watched quite a few videos and things on this. But it just doesn't feel a lot of the times like it's about the games anymore, and that's unfortunate. Because when it was, things felt better. And I think that this is an opinion, or this is an idea that most people can get behind, is that we remember the past. Well, we always usually remember the past better than it was, but we remember it so fondly, I think, by and large, because it was when people actually made games and made good games and cared. It seemed like people actually, were invested and cared legitimately about what they were doing, and it was about making the games. It was about games first, and it was about, like, you look at old school Bungie, how they wanted to form those communities and do awesome stuff. And awesome stuff did come about of it because of where their focus was. Where's your vision? Where's your passion in? If it's just about making the money, then chances are it's going to ruin other things, right? Because you're not focusing on anything. If you're just focusing on the money, then, the relationships get worse and everything else. It's just like a metaphor for life, man. It's like, I think it would be nice if we all really knew what it was like to just have, all that, whatever it is that you want, to just kind of reach that point where you think this is it, where you have all that money, and then realize that maybe it's not as good as you thought it was going to be. Maybe you should have focused on other things. Maybe you should have focused on being a better version of yourself, on helping people, on doing things because you love them, not just because you want to make money. Doing things because you're passionate about them, not just because you feel you need to make millions and be rich and famous, you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, when yes, you're a millionaire, but maybe you've had to crawl on a few other people's backs to get there, and a lot of people hate you now, or you have all this money and no one to share it with, and the paparazzis are always at your door, and you feel like you never have a life of your own, but that everything you do is broadcasted, and you feel like you have maybe no freedom, no security, no personal time as a result of it. I think if we really reached a lot of these, goals, we might realize that they're not all they're cracked up to be. And I think that you could apply this to what's happening in the industry right now, that it's sad that it seems like all they want is our money. And unfortunately, they've been getting it for so long, and now, thankfully, people are getting fed up. People are changing their attitudes, at least mostly, I hope. Like, I know that there's always going to be those fanboys that will just do whatever regardless, but if you really want to be a legitimate good fan, you need to keep these companies accountable and say, you know what, enough's enough. You can't do this anymore. Look at what you've done. Why have you done this? Why have you messed up such a great thing? Why have you made the industry so dirty, so foul, so greedy? It's not, you almost feel it's not as warm as it used to be. It's not, it's unfortunate. So without ranting much more, I hope that I got the general point across, that remember when it used to be about the games. Remember that felt like an awesome time. Hopefully we can get back to that soon and be done with all of this ridiculousness. But I'm going to end the rant here. Thanks so much for watching. Please feel free to like, subscribe, or whatever you want to do, and share. And if you've watched till the end, thank you so much. I love the support, and I hope that you can understand what I'm trying to get across, and I hope you agree. And if you don't, that's fine, because you don't have to. But I just hope that you could really meld with this idea, because it just what I'm saying right now, it just kind of feels right. So without further ado, thanks so much. Have a good day.